Well, Starbucks stores around the country have voted to unionize, much to the chagrin of Starbucks leadership, including Howard Schultz, who's returned to the company, returned to save it in his mind heroically. You can see this American Prospect headline, "The Hidden Reason for Starbucks Worker Organizing." There's this tweet we have from the Starbucks Worker United account. "They can't give union stores the new benefits they just announced. This is simply false. Our bargaining committees will demand these modest improvements be given immediately to all workers. Union busting will not work. Starbucks will be a union company." Starbucks' stunning mission about its union busting. You can read that article in The Lever, but we're also grateful to have creator of Chef Boy, Armando, and contributor to the American Prospect, Armando Vega, join us now. He's been writing about this. Armando, thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's nice seeing you, Emily. Nice seeing you, Ryan.
Yeah, so to start us off, I mean, we've talked a lot about Amazon, and every company sort of differs. And one of the interesting things about Amazon and Starbucks both is that people like Howard Schultz and Jeff Bezos, like to brag about the sort of benefits and the wages that they give to workers, entry level, first time on the job, all of that stuff. But that's not always what workers are concerned about in every single one of these cases. So could you talk to us about the reasons that Starbucks workers are citing for their need to organize and bargain with management in so many of these cases?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I've worked food service before, and really throughout my time in it, throughout the late 2000 teens, I noticed much of the same phenomena that the workers who I interviewed described, which is less people on the floor and more work on people on the floor. And at a certain point, particularly during COVID, during that time when there were restrictions in regards to health safety, it did seem as though that the company was willing to make concessions. But soon afterward, as the coronavirus restrictions began lifting, workers just began noticing that their lives and their labor just weren't being traded with dignity nor respect. And so they decided to begin unionizing. And it's not surprising that it swept from Wisconsin to Tennessee to North Carolina now. I believe I also saw another one out just today. So there are plenty of union developments around the country. And the fact that it's striking Starbucks, the fact that it's striking Amazon is not surprising at all, as these companies are able to hand over somewhat generous benefit packages, but are able to take them away or able to terminate those who make any sort of qualm about the working conditions that they actually have.
And you were recently at an event with Bernie Sanders and some Starbucks workers. What was that like? What was your takeaway? We can imagine what his message was to them, because he's on message, whether he's in private, public, no matter what. But what were the message of the? Yes, he's
the people. Power to the people. But you can hear it now.
We could recite. Yeah, we could recite what he said without being there. But what did the Starbucks workers say to him, and what was the vibe like in that room?
Yeah, so basically I was able to get the full 30 minutes back. I have it on my YouTube channel and also on my Twitter page in 3 different sections. But essentially Bernie Sanders held, a sort of green room Q&A press conference with the Starbucks workers of Central Virginia, because it wasn't just Richmond who was represented there. Those are five stores that are there, but there are actually 2 stores in Northern Virginia that are actually added to this culmination of 7 at the time out of 28 that had unionized. Bernie Sanders, held questions. There were people that stated, that they had cancer and they had to work more than full time in order to be able to afford their medications. There are people who stated that, that people had made complaints about unsafe working conditions and were soon after terminated. There are people who made complaints that they had essentially just tried to go about unionizing in secret, and those who had been discovered were being terminated slowly and pushed out with sort of regressive and also very hindsight-looking disciplinary actions that they were looking to take. But the atmosphere in that room was electric. The kind of energy that was inside of the National in Richmond, Virginia was incredible. Bernie Sanders, of course, Bernie Sanders is always on message. The guy, you can hear Power to the People, his song, right before he always comes out. The guy, he always stays on message. And really, the environment in that place was really jubilant. And as Bernie Sanders said, he was incredibly inspired by the workers, and so was I.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, a lot of people didn't expect the Starbucks sort of unionization push to catch on, but it really has. I mean, that's why Howard Schultz is freaking out clearly and saying, you won't be eligible for the benefits if you participate in the unionization. One thing that piqued my interest was actually a part of a story in Jacobin a month or so ago that talked about how one of the complaints workers have, especially in high incident Starbucks, quote, high incident Starbucks in urban areas, is that they get sort of treated or expected to act like untrained social workers was the word that was used. And that was after, we've had the bathroom policies that came out of Starbucks' response to the BLM movement in 2020. Have you heard that at all? I don't know how widespread that concern is, but I am curious about it because I've seen it myself. I've seen workers put in those situations myself. And I know, every Starbucks is different. If you're in the suburbs of, Cleveland, it's probably a very different type of environment than if you're downtown in Washington, D.C. But have you heard safety complaints in that respect from any of the Starbucks workers looking to organize?
The Starbucks workers most definitely did make complaints. And insofar as I understand, there was reporting yesterday that the NLRB has actually began taking action against Starbucks and its union busting tactics. In the interviews I conducted in the case of Meridian and also Corey that are featured in the piece, they repeatedly made claims of issues of safety within the actual institution itself. Having anything from having bees that are stuck to the nozzles of certain syrups to the point where people are getting stung, right? To either, management deciding that they wanted to remove the plexiglass barriers between their workers and their customers due to COVID restrictions being lifted. And in fact, that was the catalyst inside of Meridian's store to actually go about writing an open letter. And then from there, the management's response to actually go about unionizing themselves. And I thought I might also point out that there was also reporting out in, I think it was in Vice just the other day, maybe it was on Tuesday, to state that there was actually a sexual assault that occurred within Ashland, Virginia. And it does seem, the story does allege that the company knew what was going on and they continued to employ him. And those are the kind of reckless disregard situations that they want to stay out of. And it's the reason why they're deciding that they have to unionize. And as I say in the piece, it was at that moment when they recognized those workers that their safety, their lives were no longer going to be respected, especially after all they had been through. It was at that time, it was time for them to unionize.
And something else I think you've talked about that the pandemic changed for Starbucks workers, and walk me through this a bit. So it seems like, as stores were mostly emptied out because there was, there were all these lockdowns and stay-at-home orders, a lot of people were putting in internet orders coming to pick up. So people are still putting in all of these internet orders and coming to pick up, but then you now also have all of the foot traffic, but it seems like they haven't added any staff or any kind of mechanisms to handle what is an increasing load. Is that right? And is that one of the grievances that has workers saying, this is too much?
Well, as I pointed out in the piece, according to BLS numbers, we are still 1.5 million jobs short within the hospitality and leisure sector, which, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, mostly specifically has to do with food that's made for immediate consumption, things like Starbucks, right? So if 1.5 million people are no longer working there, and yet you still have a surge in demand at the time, there's going to be an incredible strain on that system. And the issues that I highlight within the American Prospect, the piece, is that the previous mobile order carryout scheme that they've been having was really integrated along with the software integration between front of house, the kitchen, and also the supply chain. And it's unfortunate that in many ways, it's not made more efficient for workers. It's not made to work better for them, for more safe conditions, for more profitable conditions. At the very least for them, it's set up to be as profitable for the company in the shortest amount of time possible. And so that is, that's a major sticking point as to why the amount of strain is on that institution. But even beyond that, really the workers have been stating, and as Corey Johnson stated in the piece, they literally just don't have the people to push the amount of material they need out the door. And so I think it's, as time went along and as more restrictions were released, more people were still mobile ordering and also coming in the store. And with less people actually working there, a serious decline. I think the Bureau of Labor Statistics stated it was somewhere on the range of 8.7 to 9%. With that sort of serious contraction and also experiencing growth, it's an untenable situation.
Yeah, that's good insight. Armando Vega, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. It's nice seeing you guys.
Appreciate it. We'll be back with more Rising after this.